Greetings, minions.
Today is the 70th anniversary of the signing of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
Correct, yes.
And so we would, it's an amazing document,
Right.
The U.S. signed on to it, in 1948, along with a couple dozen other countries. And we really want our country to adhere to its principles.
Sure.
And we'll talk more about those in a little bit, but a friend here has a statement he wants to share.
I know that you, like all mortals, are fearful to meet me, but I am not here to take your soul to the great beyond at this moment in time. Not yet, anyway. But rather, I am here to congratulate you for all that you have done in the service of death around the world. You've made my work so much easier.
Senator Blunt.
Because of your assistance in political double talk and support for dictators and despots, that people are dying at a rate that I can only envy. Your stony-hearted silence in the face of massive starvation and atrocities against civilians are notable, especially in Yemen, where your Senator Blunt has voted to provide billions of dollars for missiles, jets, bombs, bullets to the despotic Saudi government. And the killing has proceeded beyond my capacity to be present for each and every death that you have helped cause. You may not have pulled the trigger personally or dropped American-made guided munitions that have killed thousands of Yemeni civilians in schools, hospitals, and in their homes and marketplaces. But all of this killing would not be possible without your work locally to enable and to excuse Senator Blunt's votes to provide the Saudis the tools for death and destruction, and to blockade Yemen's harbors and deny food to those near death from starvation, and to deny medicine to those who might otherwise survive their injuries. Your silent complicity to suffering and willingness to ignore the emotional pleas of human rights activists and the United Nations officials documenting the human catastrophe is impressive, and it makes my job so much easier. Plus, your work to make all of this killing seem noble and necessary by claiming to keep America safe from terrorists, while U.S. arms merchants enrich themselves by profiting on the suffering of others, and your ability to excuse the assassinations of political opponents by drones makes my own efforts seem trite and antiquated. Most Americans will never know or even care that you are working on death's behalf. But rest assured, I know a killer when I see one. I see the results of your work in the rubble of Yemen's infrastructure, in its blasted hospitals and schools and marketplaces. I see the results in the dead school children blown to bits a few weeks ago, in the school bus targeted by American-made weapons, that your political support here guarantees will continue. I see your work in the emaciated bodies of malnourished children who are too weak to resist your efforts to abet their killers, who languish in their weakness, merely waiting to die due to your blockade. Please accept this cake as a token of my gratitude. Tell Senator Blunt that his refusal to vote for the Senate resolution to end U.S. military support for Saudi Arabia ensures job security for me and for all of you who do death's bidding. Tell him that I admire his capacity to ignore the suffering of others so that his political goals continue to align with my own. May we continue to work together until it is time for his own mortal demise. And remember that even though I may not take you to the netherworld while your body lives, I can now lay claim to the part of your soul where your compassion for the innocent has already died. Sincerely, Grim Reaper. But when we come to the congressional offices, we never get the feeling from people who have spent their whole careers funding the weapons makers, the armaments industry, who profit off of the suffering of people in war, who create millions of refugees so that they can profit in the business of the military-industrial complex. We never get the sense that people are listening to us, and we want to do something dramatic in order to get our point across. And so we brought these pictures. This was pictures from a air attack that the Saudis did. As you know, the Saudis bought a bunch of jets from the United States, and now they're using them to attack things like school buses. These children were on a field trip, and I think 36 of them were killed. The blockade has been going on for several years now, and the ports are the U.S. is interdicting, and the Saudis are interdicting supply ships so that people cannot get enough food in there. So the United Nations has documented the fact that there are all of these children that are starving. They said it's the greatest human catastrophe currently on the planet. It's a picture of a child.
And are these all for me to keep?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I know you said that you are afraid that you're not being listened to, and I definitely want to take these and pass them along for sure.
Yes. Some kids were injured in a bombing attack. This is an article from people at the Voices for Creative Nonviolence who have been keeping track of all this stuff that's been going on over there. They visited over there in the Middle East quite often. The Senate recently passed a resolution saying that they want the United States to stop participating in the Saudi military campaign. Senator Blunt voted against that resolution. We're appalled by that. The fact that they're killing their own journalists, who's a U.S. resident here in the United States, is another indication of what kind of people we're dealing with. The political disconnect between serving people and writing whole sections of the planet off and sacrificing people for their political gains, as the Saudis are doing.
Thank you for these. I will definitely share them.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But the ones who that are keeping track, the peace activists, the human rights activists, the people that we have a connection with, are putting this information out. The United Nations humanitarian workers are at their wits' end. They don't know what to do to save millions of innocent people. They said that maybe 4 million people could starve over the next few months because things have deteriorated so badly. And so I don't know what Senator Blunt can do, but it seems as if he's standing in the way when he's blocking a resolution saying that the United States should no longer participate by refueling Saudi jets that are bombing civilians' infrastructure, hitting hospitals, hitting schools, hitting marketplaces. This has happened over and over and over again. What are we to do? Our tax money pays for those weapons. Our tax money pays for those jets. And all those bullets that go into those civilian places, U.S. taxpayers pay for it. So we have a responsibility to do something about it. If we know what's going on. But and you all have to have something to do with it too, because you're working for the political part that keeps this whole process going. And I don't know how this affects you personally. I know that a lot of people compartmentalize their morality and say, I'm not pulling the trigger, I'm not flying the jets, I'm not bombing them personally. But you're working for a senator who's ensuring that it keeps happening over and over and over again. I mean, what can you do? What can you do?
Well, I can't speak for myself personally. I can only speak for the senator and pass any concerns that you have along to him, and I'll be more than happy to do that. And I'm glad you provided these. I'll definitely pass them along to the senator and his senior staff.
More specifically, so on November 28th, for SJ 54.
Can I grab my pen back?
Sure.
Let me just like take
Sure,
notes.
sure.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No, not a problem.
Yeah,
And actually, can I have you guys fill this out? I'll steal this just so we can make sure that we have everybody's names and we can pass those along to the senator as well.
Well, so SJ 54 is what Steve was referring to the other day. I mean, the vote was 63-37, just to allow that measure to get to the floor for a full debate and a vote. We're hoping that's going to happen this week. I mean, Senator Blunt was not even interested in having that. He's one of the 34. There were many Republicans who voted at least for it to move forward. And Representative Senator Lee from Utah, as you probably aware, is a co-sponsor of that bill.
Okay.
He recognizes the wisdom of Congress having some control over international policy, and recognizes the constitutional duty of Congress to be the one that declares war or not. Well, we have been at war against Yemen, the Yemeni people. We have nothing against them we don't hear. I don't know what Senator Blunt has against them. I mean, but this vote could come up, like I said, this week, and we would like to see Senator Blunt show some compassion to stand for the Constitution, not to stand for Raytheon, Boeing, Bechtel, all these different corporations that profit from war. That seems like that's who he's tuning into and listening to, not to the Yemeni people, the children who are at risk of starvation. I mean, Steve mentioned about a couple million could die within the next few months. Well, they're talking about possibly 12 million who are on the verge of famine right now. And also there have already been 50,000 Yemenis who have died in the last 3.5 years. That's blood on our hands. That's, Senator Blunt's hands are drenched in blood, what he has done there and elsewhere. I mean, today, again, it is, the anniversary of Human Rights Day, and I would want to pass on to you. And, the thing is, in Germany, they talk about the good Germans, the people who just kind of went along and let things happen. Like Steve said, compartmentalizing things, and in fact, maybe not everyone's pushing bodies into the ovens at Auschwitz or doing all kinds of horrible things, but maybe they were just, maybe they're cleaning the streets or making things easier in other ways. And so each one of us has I have a hand. I'm guilty as well because I still pay taxes, so I'm still a war criminal in a small way. We all are. We all have a hand in the killing what's going on in Yemen and elsewhere. I wanted to pass along for you to have a copy of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
Wonderful.
It's a wonderful, an amazing document. 30 different planks in there. Again, people came together after World War II, terrified of what had happened. Tens of millions of people have been killed. They came together and said, what can we do to help prevent this from happening? So human rights, the concept was kind of conceived, and recognizing these rights that we have as people. They're not privileges. They help, because we're human beings, we have this right. Some would say God-given right. Senator Blunt hasn't been tuning into that kind of thing. I mean, I'll mention a couple things. I mean, when you look on this later on, but like for instance, Articles 3 and 5. Article 3 says everyone has the right to life, liberty, and the security of persons. So this is being violated routinely in Yemen and elsewhere. Article 5 says no one should be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. Well, you talk about the journalist who was suffocated and dismembered. With our assistance, in a way, we're giving him cover. I haven't heard Senator Blunt speak out against Mr. Khashoggi's assassination.
So there's been a number. So obviously we've had a number of hearings in the intelligence community, and with him sitting on that, the briefings are classified, and he's made some public statements to the news.
What did he say? I missed it. I'm sorry.
And to the news, so there was some complaints because some of the senators came out and spoke very openly about that closed session, and the senator was frustrated and expressed that frustration because it was a closed setting with the CIA director. So obviously, with it being a closed setting, and I don't have an intelligence community or intelligence background,
Right.
That's not privy to
Sure.
the general public, and so I'm not sure what that briefing entailed, but he was involved in that there and is aware of what's going on there.
Well, I know that Senator Graham expressed disgust.
Sure.
He said there may not have been a smoking gun, but there was a smoking saw.
Right.
You
And
know?
I saw that senator's comment, and I can't speak for Senator
Well,
Graham,
here's the
but-
thing: is like so do we? It's important for us to keep secrets and not to be truthful about what goes on in our world. I mean, you're gonna have to talk about that individual case because I'm quite frankly, I'm offended by that, but I'm even more upset and offended at what we're allowing happen in Yemen to these tens of thousands of children who are dying. Steve and I went to Iraq in 1993. It was 97. Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, and we saw children dying, before us dying because of the lack of adequate food and medicine. under Republican and Democratic administrations. So we're not like slamming just Republicans. We're concerned about human rights in general. So I would, oh, great, yay. Hey, Virginia. All right. Do you want to introduce yourself and what you're here about, Virginia?
Hi, my name's
Hi.
Virginia.
How are you? Morgan Quarter. Pleasure. Nice to meet you.
Local citizen.
Would you like something to drink? Would you like a water or something? Okay, there's some water in there.
About what's going on in Yemen, and that the U.S. continues to support situations that lead to people being killed and all sorts of brutality. I'm very concerned, and I want to make sure that Senator Blunt is very aware of the concerns we have.
Definitely. Well, we appreciate you coming and expressing your opinions. Thank you.
We also, I mean, this is a cause also, it's not just Yemenis. I mean, we realize that human rights are being violated all around the planet. The U.S., for one, we're upset as well that without any criticism, we continue to support the policies of Israel in their dispossession of the Palestinian people, too. There's this, we have, Senator Blunt, most of Congress has been kind of ignoring the reality of the Palestinian people suffer. I haven't heard him speak out against, for instance, in Gaza right now, where since last March, people who are peacefully protesting, just walking to the barrier between Gaza and Israel proper, they're just walking to it, and they're being gunned down, they're being assassinated. More than 200 people have been assassinated, killed by Israeli sharpshooters with our bullets and with our weaponry, and there have been more than 15,000 who've been wounded. They're wounding people. They're shooting them so that like at their knees, their legs, so they're unable to walk in the future. Our government is not taking a stand against that. But now if it had been Israelis, Jewish folks, I suspect have killed one person in that way. Senator Blunt and others might have been screaming at the top of their lungs. The thing about it is that we need to have. The human rights are equal for everybody. Nobody is better than anyone else. All Jewish people, Muslim people, Christians, non-believers, we all have a right to human rights. And Senator Blunt, through his policies, he's not enforcing or upholding those. Another issue we'll just mention real quick, on the border as well. I mean, individuals have a human right to asylum. The people who are fleeing from Honduras, from Central America, Mexico, many of them are fleeing because the government there is corrupt and there's a great deal of violence. The United States was involved in supporting the coup of Zelaya, the president who was overthrown back during the Obama administration. And it's one of the most violent places in the world. Well, the people are fleeing because they're dealing with gang violence. They're coming to the border and treated as if they're part of an invasion. That's not the case. I mean, again, back to this Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it speaks about the right to asylum. That's, again, a basic human right that is being violated routinely by people like President Trump, Senator Blunt, Representative Hartzler, other officials. They have a right to come here and have safe harbor. That's part of what came out of the World War II experience. But President Trump and others are just kind of ignoring that. So we would encourage Senator Blunt to take this Declaration of Human Rights seriously, as it should. And here's a little bit about human rights. I'll give that to you as well. It's just from Wikipedia, so you don't have to look very hard for it. But I'd like to see him uphold human rights. Sure. Has he said anything about any problems with how Saudi is operating? And I haven't heard anything.
I'm not familiar. Off the top of my head, I'm not familiar if he has or not, and I'll be happy to get your contact information.
Here's the thing I'll share. I mean, I like Hannah a lot too, but we came here a couple months ago too.
Sure.
Another group of us.
I believe, I remember you all coming.
Well, I mean, I never heard anything back from her. I mean, I think you're not saying she's not a responsible person, but maybe there's nothing he's willing to offer because he doesn't have any problem. His fealty is with weapons makers, with governments like Saudi who are repressive. That's fine. As far as human rights and the well-being of our Yemeni brothers and sisters or dissidents within Saudi Arabia, maybe he doesn't really care much about that. As long as his money is coming in, that's kind of what it seems like. And that may be a little bit of insight into who you're working for. I mean, I'm not, I don't mean disrespect to you per se, but I think, you need to think about, I guess, who you are serving. I mean, are you going to be serving death in your indirect way? I mean, maybe Senator Blunt is someone who's not really worth your labor. I would encourage you to think about that. I mean, nothing against Republicans per se. I mean, McCaskill, we criticized her a whole bunch for different policies. You know, she was supporting war abroad as well. You know, whoever, we're universal in our concern.
Well, certainly, and I apologize that you didn't feel that your
Well, never
opinions
heard
were
back. Never
valued
heard
or-
back from her. Never heard back from her. She
Okay.
said she'd try to get back to us. So I'll leave you my
Yeah,
email
I'll be.
address.
If that would be great. If
Yeah.
you could put your contact information.
And I'll give you also our newsletters that we sent out. So
Okay.
too.
Perfect.
We didn't get some coverage because there's a Nobel laureate here. So that kind of drew out a bunch of
Are these
contacts.
kind
I'm sure I
of-
saw that he had a ceremony today
Yeah.
too. I
Are
was
these
watching
kind
some
of
of that.
awarenesses not something that your office really has any information about? I mean, when
I'm
we-
sorry. Say that again.
When we come to speak to you, we make the assumption that you have a good sense of how Senator Blunt is operating, but when you say you have no idea about any of these things, then I'm concerned. In what way are you helpful to us when we come if you really don't have a sense of what his positions are?
Sure. So a little bit of distinction maybe too that might be helpful. So here in our constituent services office, we're obviously, representing the senator, but we here are focused a lot on our constituent services and not as much on the legislative policy that Senator Blunt is carrying out. So we help veterans, issues with Social Security, things like that. That's more of our forte. Now our legislative staff in D.C. are much more well-versed on the senator's positions, on all of his policies, and just frankly, obviously, with there being so many issues, I just don't know the specifics from the senator's stance on one specific topic. Now, I'm more than happy to speak with our legislative staff in D.C. and get those answers that
I would like
you
that.
have. Sure.
Yeah.
I would be more than happy to do that.
I'm concerned that we don't have a local presence here that we can go right to who says, yes, we're aware of that, we will get the word out.
Well, we act as, that's the point of those district offices, is to be here to
Right.
receive constituents like yourself, and let you express your opinions to us. And we're in discussion with our legislative staff in D.C. if there's ever an issue that you bring to us. So that's kind of, I would say, the distinction that I want you to be sure that you feel like you're heard, because we express those opinions.
Can you take what you've heard today as a real emergency and get that information to the legislative staff today? I mean, can you make that promise?
Sure, I'll be happy to pass along that you all feel it's an emergency,
and how we feel about these are death issues. We're talking about people dying.
sure.
We'd love to see our Missouri senators, take the right stand. Senator McCaskill, on this one at least, she did vote for the measure to go to the floor for debate. And so, it'd be wonderful to see both Missouri senators vote to say, yeah, it's time to end this military support to this butchering nation. It'd be really nice to see him take a stand, an independent stand, free of the military contractors. So it'd be nice to know, or even I'd like to hear an explanation of why he feels like, the Saudi relationship is more important than, the 12 million Yemenis who may die from starvation. It'd be nice to actually see him show that kind of forthrightness. And instead I see him hiding behind, I'm not sure, behind the moneyed interests too much so.
Well, I'll be definitely happy to get some responses for you. And like I said, I apologize. I'm not as well versed in the legislative side of things because I'm not on the legislative staff. And obviously, there's issues, millions of issues, and I just am not familiar with every single one of the senators.
Or just get us the information from them.
Sure, absolutely.
Because it would be good because we don't get it. I mean, I get these form letters back from Senator Blunt, sometimes, but.
And you have your
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that'd be great. I'd be glad to share with other people. And I appreciate constituent service work that you do.
Sure.
But this is also a very central one.
Yeah, absolutely. And we appreciate you coming in and expressing your opinions. And like I said, I apologize that I'm not as well versed in it. But our legislative staff, we have a team that's specified in whether it's foreign policy, domestic, different
Thanks for
issues.
explaining that.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully that is a good explanation there, kind of how our system is set up. And obviously with them being in D.C., surrounded by policy out there, they don't focus as much on constituent services out there as we do here in the district or in the state. So hopefully that's a good explanation there.
How many kids were in that bus on the field trip?
There were about 36, I think, that were killed. There were some
There's a
adults.
school right here.
Sure.
say this bus gets blown up, 30 kids laying out there with their backpacks full of blood. What's Senator Blunt going to do then? Huh? Think he'd stand up for those 30 kids? But we're talking about human rights, not Columbia children rights. So where's he at?
Certainly. I'll be happy to pass that along to him. Well, thank you very
Thanks
much,
for
and I
your
have
time.
all your
Appreciate
information here. Absolutely, and I'll be happy to share this with the senator.